are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
Well, thanks for everyone for taking your time with us today. The topic's ROI of Technology, and it's something I've spoken on once before, and it's something that kind of near and dear to my heart because get fired up there. There we go. Here's my present mode. I've been dealing with technology for a long time. So obviously there's challenges about technology, and it's a proof case. It's to understand the value benefits, obviously, technology cost benefits, what it is, what's it really going to do for you. The biggest one I always compare it to, it's not a tangible thing, technology. So it's not something you get hands on. Like you buy a drill, you're not buying the drill for the drill, you're buying it for the holes it makes, okay? And when this spooky black box shows up with computer software in it or something like that, people don't always see the immediate benefits to it. So it's kind of hard to get people to understand the benefits. So obviously, I want to talk about all facets of it, the costs, understanding it, identifying it, how to push it within your company, and just my experiences on it. I've sat in a lot of different seats and seen it used in a lot of different fashions. So I'm going to try and give you my perspective on what I've seen. Just a quick overview of the learning objectives. You can see these are the topics I want to talk about. So just a quick slide to give you a heads up on that. They kind of already explained who I am. I've been in construction almost 35 years. I've worked for a lot of top mechanical contractors. I started out as a draftsperson. That's how I started out. And then I eventually got the trade, became a pipe fitter. But I was doing CAD back in 1986, and that was my introduction to it. We still had TRS-80 computers. That was our first computers in estimating. And then we had these killer 286 computers in our CAD department with a whopping 40 megabyte hard drive and 1 megabyte of RAM. So we were hot stuff back then. Also, I'm pretty big on lean construction, and that's really one of the things that I utilize when I identify ROI and making sense of things. So you'll see me referencing a couple items like that. My current job, get back there. One more time. Okay, there we go. Currently, I work for a company called ICT that I helped co-found there. And basically, we develop construction technology for job sites. Our current thing we're using is we generate 3D models to capture installation status using augmented reality. Plus, we give you 3D free flight. And the real thing is just to deliver real-time reporting data. So this is a hole that I kind of saw in our industry that I've been trying to fill for about 10 years. And it wasn't simple enough the way we were doing it. So we actually developed a product to try and take to that next level there. So that's what's keeping me busy these days. So the goals of technology. Obviously, we want to streamline our process to reduce labor, right? That's probably the number one conversation, your constant battle of reducing cost and labor. We're trying to promote efficiency, and that's one of the ways you're going to achieve this. There's obviously a labor shortage out in the construction industry, so it's another reason why you're looking at technology to help streamline it. And it's not to replace people, it's trying to make people more efficient, basically where they're at. And then obviously using lean methodologies for technology, how to implement those and use the logic of lean. So one of the things that stands out to me a lot of times is understanding the total cost of software. And the issue I run across typically is people don't realize that the cost of software is typically the least of the cost. That's the best way I put it is you buy a piece of software and everyone goes, oh my God, that thing's $5,000. And what they really don't realize is how much labor it's going to take to get it set up, training your people, impact on your business, all the other things. So you have that, you have the software training that goes along with it. So whether it's internally or externally. And then also, the cost of customization, nothing comes box stock. I'm sorry, I've been doing this long enough that I haven't seen it. And plus there'll be maintenance. There'll be maintenance and updates. And then you're going to have to document the process. You're going to buy documentation probably, but you're also going to have to document the process internally for how it works in your company. So how do we identify the values in it? So, first thing we have to take a look and see what the technology is doing, what it's doing for us. And that's, I think, a lot of people kind of see or are looking at to understand is why and how how this is going to make sense to us, how this is going to provide that next piece of to the puzzle for our company. So we're looking at how to measure the success. You know, we have to set up some standards. We have to set up some ground rules. You know, typically, you usually have to set someone to champion the process. And then what are the bottlenecks? Okay, that's kind of the real big thing is, you know, what is slowing down the process and preventing you from getting to that next level? Okay, and bottlenecks can be a departmental thing, and they can be global. I mean, sometimes it holds the whole company up, and sometimes it's just multiple bottlenecks within the division. So you have to take a look within your company, identify where these bottlenecks are. And so the target we look for is the use of ROI, return on investment. I think forward. All right. Give me a second. There we go. Okay. I don't know why it's not keeping up there. So the bottom line is here, what we have here is you know, what are ROI charts, and the basis of them, you know, they come in multiple formats. They help identify the benefits that aren't readily seen. That's really what they do. You know, the lean process will kind of push you to try and use an A3 format, which is basically a single 11 by 17 page. And the reason for this is so you can keep information concise and not bury some of the multi-page report. A lot of times when people try and outline what's going on or issues they're having on, they'll just drag on with, no one wants to read through these paperwork. So A3 is a really good technology to kind of keep your information concise. You know, and you know, do you have all your costs identified when you're putting this ROI together? You know, we talked about the training and your labor to be trained. Some people do that. Says, well, it's $5,000 for training, but you have to still pay for people to sit in a class to get trained, and how much training they need beyond that. And then implementation. You know, what's it take to implement this stuff? Okay, and implementation usually is in stages. So you're gonna step into it, you know, one step at a time. And there's a short-term and a long-term cost to that typically. And then obviously we talk about customization. You might realize customization up front, but as you move along, you also might realize we need additional customization as we start utilizing software and learn more about it and see some of the benefits to it. So, you know, one of the things I talk about, and you really have to understand your costs, and I explain this a lot to the guys I deal with, because sometimes technology people don't understand the cost of running a business, and they don't understand true costs. So there's an hourly wage, which is what everyone sees on a check, but you really have to understand what someone's package rate is, okay? And when I say that is, you know, obviously you have their hourly rate plus medical benefits, vacation holiday, taxes, burden. If you're an ESOP company, you have ESOP bennies, you have 401ks, bonuses, perks. That's what that person actually costs the company. So when you try to put these numbers together and try and outline what the actual total cost to your company, and sort of turn around and say, this guy's making, we'll just say he's making $40 an hour, that's not his package. That's not what the cost of the company is when you implement and use these ROIs to turn around and identify the true benefit to the company. And then another term we talk about is crew rate. What's the cost for your total crew? If you got 12, 15 people doing this, you know, what does it cost for that package for these guys? What's the average, what we call crew rate, the average between these 15 people as they start learning and getting to that next point there. So we talk about training costs, and I talk about understanding your true training costs. And so I've said it once before, but you know, people have to sit in training, and people kind of forget how much time that takes for someone to do that. Plus mobilization, you might have to send someone to training, you might have to send them by airplane somewhere, you know, or they might have to bring someone into the office. Okay, maybe that guy's off site, and that person has to come in to get the training. And then also that you have the impact of losing that person and what the impact on your current workload is. And the other thing is you have to be realistic with your learning curves. I think this is something I've seen a lot where people just think everyone's just gonna be up and going in a month, and it doesn't happen that way. And learning curves, you know, you kind of see the traditional one I have up there, which they show the learning curve there, but really what happens is the learning curve just continues to go up and down, because every year you have updates, every year you have changes. You know, every software is in beta. I've said that, and I'll probably say it again a couple times, but the learning curve never stops. It's continually to reinforce, improve your company as the product improves, as you learn more about it. And like I said, technology is always changing, so it's just an active impact on your company, and you have to keep on investing to get to that point. So we talked a little bit cost customization and maintenance. Nothing works right out of the box. You know, the customization is, you know, first question is the software manufacturer doing it for you, or is it an in-house thing? So that's potential cost. Your yearly maintenance is the cost of the software. Do they release packages? How often do they do package releases on it? And then your in-house maintenance for service packs as they do come out, because if something gets released, how do you roll it out? What's the impact on everyone? Does it do some? I've had softwares come out and take something that was working fine before and now turned everything upside down. So you have to pay attention to those kind of impacts. When we talk about sharpening the saw, that's a term there from the old 7 Habits book there. And it's really about, you have to continually improve the process, okay? So we're continually looking at it. And even though we've set up maybe a 2, 3, 4-year plan to roll this thing out and get to this level, you have to keep on looking at it every year and identify, are we doing the best we can with what we have? Like I just said, every software is beta. That's the best way I can put it is, every software is getting released in intervals every year. I mean, talk to Bill Gates. He's a very wealthy man because of all his betas he gets everyone to buy and do every year. But if they, especially on software though, try and get on their beta wish list if you can, because now you can see things up front and you can hopefully improve or change the process. And so that way you can kind of steer it and guide a little bit to how your company operates. So there's some value and advantage to that. So, documentation and in-house training is a very important part. And that's usually the weakest part of most softwares I've seen is guys can write code like crazy. They are not very good at explaining it to how the common person works. They assume certain things that you should know this. And so you need to understand there's time to learn. There's going to be a lost time, and you need to give people ample time to train, and sometimes you can incentivize training. You put on a bonus structure there. People put in so many hours. There's tracking programs you can use to track how people are training. And I always call it reinvesting in themselves. Keep documentation simple, make it visual, bite-sized pieces. Videos are best. You can actually make videos and generate PowerPoints or PDFs from your videos. Internal versus external training. So the question on that, internal might save some cost. People look at that, but internal can also take some away from doing their job. And maybe they're the champion or your smartest person there. But when you bring an external trainer in, you're bringing an experienced trainer. And they've worked at other companies and they've probably seen other things, other companies that might apply to your team and maybe improve your company. So there might be value in that. And once again, the A3 I'll mention a few times, but I do recommend trying to use something like that format to keep things concise and on target. IT managers versus technologists, and this is something that's kind of come out over a few years. And in the construction industry, you have BIM managers and VDC managers, and but really a technologist is someone who really steps out and takes a look at the whole company. So this is something we've kind of seen a lot where every group seems to work on a silo of their data. So the IT manager, typically he's going to focus on the whole company infrastructure, software implementation, infrastructure, security. That's typically what they do. Most IT managers, unfortunately, are not day-to-day users of the software. They know of it, they're familiar with it, but that's not what they love and that's not what they live for. So they can't be an expert on your software. And they have a full-time job just keeping your company running and keeping everyone alive in all different environments they're going, especially right now. I mean, how many people went through the shakeup when all of a sudden the whole companies went off-site? How many companies were really ready for that? So technology is here's somebody that looking for human interaction, with the data. This is what we're looking for. It's not a software and hardware thing. They should be thinking about a strategy before implementation, seek to drive company interface of data. Where can we knock down walls and work throughout all the departments and make them work together? So like I mentioned, eliminate silos of data. You got to look at technology as a whole and not per group or department. And I've seen that failure in a lot of companies I work at where people are in their little niche and they've got their software and they're working great, doesn't work or play with anyone else. And you find out they're doing the exact same thing 3 other people are. So we're repeating all our data. And I think that's kind of the biggest thing everyone's learning these days is the value of data. And that person kind of has a passion for solving problems, and he doesn't see problems as obstacles. He sees, not problems as obstacles to avoid. Every technology tool, it solves an issue or it improves the process. That's the goal and target. And they're really supposed to leverage our technologies to solve problems. Let's eliminate bottlenecks. Okay, that's really what this person does. So it's a totally different perspective, and you're seeing more and more companies start to hire this person to really look at how they operate, and also forming committees within the company to try and implement all this new stuff. So, we talk about understanding your company's actual costs, and technology is an overhead cost typically, and they eat profit. So it's a number of things management hates. And like I said, technology is not very tangible. So it's harder for someone to see, when they walk out and they see, like I said, they go out and see a drill, they understand why they spent $300 for that drill and they see it in operation. That's awesome. When they come out and look at a computer screen, they don't know what's going behind that. So it's hard to justify, and part of you need to understand what your budgets are. So you need to know your costs and your budget. Be involved, have some say so, and understand, what the costs and concerns are of upper management. As you go and sell technology to people, it's really, we're buying efficiency, and that's at the end of the day, it's a business, and everyone has to understand the numbers and where the payoff is. It might cost us up front, but here's the payoff on the back end. Also, you need to understand who's paying for it. Is it a company thing? Is it a department thing? Also, who does it affect? Maybe you're working with multiple departments that, is this something that benefits them? So it might be a cost from their little pool of money. So there's a lot of different ways to look at and see how technology get paid and cost justified. So, handling costs, there's a couple of ways to do it. Top one, their burden rate. So what some companies do is actually put a burden rate on top of employee and say, okay, here's Dave. From Dave makes X amount of dollars, but so Dave can afford, or so we can afford Dave to have this computer and software and all the other stuff. We put a burden rate. So it's just an additional cost added to their wage to offset the cost for equipment, peripherals, all the other stuff that goes along with it. Project rental. Sometimes you can rent out computers, software, peripherals. Peripherals can be rented back to the project as a cost of doing business, and it's a tool. That's the thing that a lot of people kind of forget. Computers are tools. That's all they are. They may look slick and fancy, but at the end of the day, they're a tool. And in a lot of ways, you need to look at them that way, how you treat other tools within your company. Leasing computers and peripherals, it's a good way to control your costs, and you're able to upgrade at the end sometimes based on, versus owning a software or a piece of technology gets outdated. You can lease it for a few years and roll it over and turn that. And the thing to consider is sometimes people say, well, I buy it and then I hand it down, but you consider the cost of hand-me-down. So now someone has to reset up the old machine. Is there any other issues with the machine? Sometimes it just doesn't pencil out when you figure out how much time. You really need to find how long it takes your IT people to set up a new machine. Every company is a little different. I threw this last one here, DOS, Desktop as a Service, just to kind of make the conversation, because DOS delivers virtual applications and desktops, they're be done through a cloud service. But the bottom line is now your workforce can access their desktop anywhere, and they can walk up to any machine. You don't have to pay for such expensive machines because a lot of the horsepower computing is done online. It's really just a monitor at that point, so you can save money on the technology for your machines. If someone's machine goes down, it's not like we have to stop and go get a machine, get it all set up. No, we just drop a new machine in front of it, and that person's up and going. Okay, so there's a lot of value and advantages to looking at DOS as another option for technology costs. So I talked a little bit about owning versus leasing technology, and one of the things you have to keep in mind with technology is moving. Moore's law used to say it was 2 years, and what we're seeing is more like 6 months. I mean, it's pretty crazy what's going on and what's hot, what's not, and how to identify what's stable technology versus technology that's really growing. And that's part of your job with technology, is to help identify, because people are going to come out and tell you they've got the new greatest thing, but you find out it's really not there and it still needs a lot more development. Advantage of leasing. Leasing stuff is allows you to push out your costs and put things on a monthly budget now. So it might be a little easier to track, so that's one way to look at. Renting sometimes a pretty good option for hardware because it allows you to upgrade and push off cost maintenance. It's packaged into things. So certain pieces of technology equipment, you might want to consider renting and look and see if that option exists with the vendor. So this one's just a real quick example here, but when you do rental costs, you have to make sure you have everything in there. So it's a package. It's not just the computer, it's the software. Someone had to set it up. There was labor to take care of all the stuff. There's an initial, there's some maintenance costs to it. So you need to make sure you identify the internal and external costs for setting up and get this computer. So we're renting it out. So influencers versus decision makers versus blockers. And this is the dance when you play with technology. Influencers, obviously, these people see the value, but they need some good feedback to give to the decision maker to help justify the cost. Now, the decision maker, who's that person? He's the economic buyer. He's the guy who signs the check, okay? So he has to understand the technology and be bought on the process. And every company has the blocker, the guy who likes the way things have been going on for the last 20 years and doesn't think we should change anything. So they'll typically fight technology. They don't see value in change, or they don't want to learn something new. So that's something you'll run across. Key thing to remember, when a company is busy and making money, it's hard to convince management to change sometimes because things are good. Why change? The opposite problem is when a company is slow and revenue's down, it's hard to convince management to change because overheads are tight and they don't want to invest in new technology. So it's a kind of vicious cycle sometimes you'll run into. Oops. So the last thing I want to do is you're selling technology sometimes to people and it's making people understand it. And with any technology, you need to sell it to the management team. Even if you're part of that management team, you still need to sell it to the rest of them, make sure everyone agrees and understands. So you want to empower them to make the decision. So educate them on who you're buying it for and why, educate them on what the software does, educate them on what the ROI will be, and how long this ROI will take to be recovered. And then all this shit has to be done, and all this stuff has to be done in 10 to 15 minutes. When you can't make it too complex. So the ultimate goal is you have to answer their questions. Remember, it's an investment, not a purchase. Let them make the decision. That's really your target goals when you do this stuff there. So I think that's basically what I had. You told me to keep it short and sweet. I kept it there, so we definitely have time for questions, Nick.
Thank you, David. That was great. So if any attendees want to put questions for David into either the Q&A or the chat, we do have a couple minutes left for any questions. David, I have a question while we wait for other folks to put more in.
Sure.
What's the I always ask this for any construction tech startup because I know there's a ton of different objections that you hear. But what is the most common objection that you experience as a business when not trying to sell your product? Like what's the most cliche objection, and then what is the most difficult objection to overcome? You actually start.
Well, number one comes up a lot is we're just too busy. We don't have time for change. We don't have time for this, So that one comes up a lot, and in our case, the COVID thing kind of helped us with construction. People had time to sit and talk, and all of a sudden they really wanted to track what the status of their job sites were going. So, that's exactly what we do is you want to track your labor and identify your efficiency, what's your productivity. So that was something that really changed for us, but that's kind of the most common one. And, obviously people are reluctant to change. And the other thing is how do you integrate? That's really the bigger conversation, how do you integrate and work with their existing stuff, which I'm a big advocate for, and our whole company is. And we are, one of the big softwares out there is Procore. We integrate with Procore. A lot of companies we find have their own custom solutions. So we end up having to build something to work with their custom solutions. So we use Power BI as our main reporting vehicle, which allows us to take our data, pull it in, and bring their data in also and put it hand in hand and play together. So now, they might have their accounting software that's feeding out, the hours and dollars and that stuff. And now we can tie those together and give them better data.
Mm-hmm. What's an integration out there that that's more commonly requested outside of Procore?
I'll be honest with you, it's whatever their ERP solution is in-house, which is a really funny fine line because most accounting departments don't want you playing in their environment. So, they want to tie it all together so it's all one common thing, yet the accounting people don't want you messing with their environment at all. So it's a pretty interesting situation. I run into it quite a few times in my companies I've worked at, where it seems like a great idea until you really start talking about it, and then also the accountants come up with all the reasons you can't do it. Let's see.
Right.
Ellen, so do you believe the current decentralized structure of construction firms is a barrier to adoption? Do you recommend to start at the project level and hope for diffusion, or start at the CIO and hope for project director adoption? I'll be honest, from our perspective, we typically like working up top with someone who is actually going to pay for it and sees the overall value. I mean, it's great to have people at the lower level who are pushing the tech and see the value of the tech. And, these are the people we're working with to try and help identify it. But, it's really to our benefit to go in, and their benefit also to go in with a more of a enterprise solution. I mean, that's really what you're looking at, is versus turn around and take it one at a time. And that's when you start coming with silos. If all of a sudden every project doing something different and someone goes to another project, there's no company standard. So I think that is a standard, like you said, decentralization structure of construction firms. As people get spread out, you can control certain things and certain things you can't. But if you see something, I think it needs to be brought up to the company and say, hey, here's something we'd like to try on our project, but let's make sure it's a company process that we're gonna try and take advantage of, not something we're just gonna do on this one-time, one-hit project deal.
Good question, Elaine. Thank you. All right. Any final questions for David here before we move to our next panel? Great.
Going once, going twice. Okay.
Sold. Thank you, David, so much. That was great to hear your perspective.
Thanks for the opportunity. And so, I mean, our real target here is just to try and reach out to people. If you guys are in construction, using construction tech, we have a piece of technology we'd love to come take a look at. Take advantage of what's there. And I think there's a lot of great companies here that are promoting some really great ideas and some great opportunities for taking construction to the next level. I think that's what everyone's looking for. So thanks for much of your time.